Welcome to the Village of Bartlett Committee of the Whole meeting for September 19, 2017. I call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to again call the roll.
Trustee Kammer?
Present.
Carbonaro?
Here.
Daney?
Here.
Gabrenya?
Here.
Hopkins?
Here.
Ranky?
Here.
President Wallace?
Here. We have items under Planning and Zoning Committee this evening to discuss. Chairman Hopkins.
Thank you, President Wallace. We had 3 items on our agenda. One was covered at our board meeting. The second item is Rana Pasta Solutions, and they are looking for some incentives. Would you like to run us through this, Mr. Plunzinski?
Yes, thank you, Trustee Hopkins. As you know, and you've seen it at the committee level, Rana Pasta is building, it's not only its next manufacturing facility, but also going to plan on moving their corporate headquarters to Bartlett with their new building, 326,000 square foot building. Can't remember the exact amount, but it's a lot of money, and it's going to produce lasagna. In the previous
Lasagna, right?
Lasagna, yeah. In the previous Rana incentive that we granted a couple of years ago when they first came to the village, they asked us for an economic incentive which is eligible to come out of the TIF funds. We gave them $50,000. Basically, it was for permit reimbursement and different associated costs. That was coupled with a state EDGE grant, tax incentive grant. This go-round, basically, they got the same incentive from the state to continue that EDGE program, and then they asked us if we would also consider another incentive. When we discussed it at the first go-around in the staff, we were under a order of silence for the project because it was being shopped around to other communities. We were lucky in that Rana selected Bartlett to come here. I think that was a lot of credit to our staff and to the business park owner. And they are asking for another $50,000 incentive. The agreement it's essentially the same type of agreement for associated costs with permitting. And there's an agreement attached here. It's a similar type of agreement. So that's it in sum and substance. And it's here for your discussion and moving on to the village board for a final vote.
Thank you, Jim. I'm excited about this because I think we talked about this in our strategic plan meeting, so, you know, promoting existing incentives for businesses, so I think it's a good thing, so.
Is anyone from Rana here tonight?
I did not see that.
I haven't seen it in Costco in years.
We're making lasagna.
I thought we'd get some samples or something, at least at committee.
I think Sal will probably provide those once the building's up and running. He's offered
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. I would like to see that. Yeah.
That would be interesting.
And just to clarify, the $50,000 is coming from TIF funds, correct?
Correct.
comes from our TIF. It's an eligible TIF fund cost, and we have contingency money, and we have budgeted incentives in the past out of that.
Right, so this is not coming out of the village general fund?
No.
Okay, good.
I think that's a good point to clarify.
Yeah, I mean, but this is what the TIF is for, bring building, bring economic activity.
Yeah.
And they were looking this around, too. They were shopping this around to different villages. This was going on for well over a year. So the staff did a tremendous job keeping their, because this isn't just a lasagna line, this is their entire headquarters for the U.S.,
Yes.
which is moving from Oak Brook.
Yes,
Here.
they're moving the offices into this building.
And they're addressed with a lot of their stuff. Their attorneys are in the Empire State Building. So they have some contacts in New York, too.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to move this directly onto the village board for a vote, or?
I would suggest so.
Yeah, it's in committee, we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for your discussion now and to move on to the next meeting. And it'll be paired up with the Rana building, which will come to you next meeting, too.
And if the other board members haven't done so, I'd highly recommend you guys taking a tour of not only the new plant when it's open, but the regular Rana plant is pretty impressive. It's
Oh, yeah.
state-of-the-art pasta making, because it's very combustible stuff, so it's very state-of-the-art.
Can we schedule something? I'd be interested.
Yeah, moving on.
Sal has offered tours to set up for staff and the board, so we can set it up.
Just
It's amazing to see just when I toured it, when they first opened, just the smell of the basil, when you walk in those giant coolers and it's floor to ceiling, and it's amazing. It's very cool. Highly recommend.
We can't get a date for a strategic planning meeting. How are we going to get a date to take a tour?
There's food involved.
Yeah, really.
Okay.
Lunchtimes. Right, and I would highly recommend that we make the final payment from the TIF only when we have samples of lasagna.
Yeah. Go ahead and move it. We recommend,
We'll move this on to the village board.
Good idea.
We'll move on to item number 3, the Route 59 and Lake Street marketing plan. Who would be running us through this?
Tony.
All right.
Thank you very much. This is a very appropriate item to wrap up tonight's meeting because you've heard a lot of economic development proposals, one in the downtown with Balanced Family Chiropractic, approved some economic development project in Oakfield Center with Olivia's Place, and then talking about our big growing business park, Brewster Creek Business Park, with another expansion of Rana. This is a little bit of a turn to talking about some of our undeveloped sites that are also included within our marketing plan. The EDC spent about 4 or 5 months last year working on creating a marketing plan that was titled the 2016 to 2020 Marketing Plan. And Paula and I staffed all those EDC meetings and ultimately brought it to the board a little less than a year ago, last October. And if you recall, it was broken down by different development areas and different strategies and initiatives to bring new development or redevelopment to various areas within Bartlett. And so this is turning our attention to some large undeveloped sites that are still ripe for future development along Route 59 and Lake Street. There is a TIF district at the southwest corner of 59 and Lake Street, undeveloped at this time. The village owns some property within it, approximately 11 acres. There's, as you know, the large 100-acre plus site at the intersection of West Bartlett Road and Route 59 that's owned by Crown Community Development. So these are some of the future development areas of the village. And one aspect of the marketing plan was to become more aggressive in marketing some of these land sites, increasing our participation in ICSC. That's an acronym I use a lot. That stands for International Council of Shopping Centers. That's a large organization that includes shopping center owners and developers, retail representatives, and economic development officials and municipal officials. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, the Village of Hanover Park, I heard somebody reference a collaboration with Hanover Park earlier, and the mayor and staff of Hanover Park suggested bringing several communities together that are along the I-390 corridor. And so Scott and I attended a meeting that included 7 or 8 different communities. We were the westernmost community, but it went through Arlington Heights and Itasca, Hanover Park, Wooddale, Bloomingdale, and several communities right along the corridor. What they were proposing at that meeting was a collaborative effort in creating some marketing materials and perhaps sharing a booth at the large ICSC annual convention that's held every May in Las Vegas. It's called the Recon Show. So you know, the village has been an active member of ICSC for many years. The entire 12 years I've been with the village, and it precedes my tenure here as well, attending shows in Chicago, including a show that we'll be attending, along with sharing some booth space with Choose DuPage next week at Navy Pier. So part of this discussion tonight for the marketing plan was to increase our participation, to consider doing a collaborative effort with several communities along the I-390 corridor. I met with them again last week. We had expressed initial interest in participating, and we were one out of 6 communities. There was Bensonville, Bloomingdale, Bartlett, the three Bs, Itasca, Wooddale, and Hanover Park, who initiated these meetings. Our village would primarily go there to this show to promote these undeveloped areas. For instance, the large village-owned site that's at the southwest corner of 59 and Lake Street, and also the Crown Community Development property that I had mentioned. We hope to be here at a future meeting bringing development projects before you at these sites. And one of the ways we can do it is by more aggressively marketing these sites, possibly at the ICSC show in May. Sharing space with other communities, like we're doing next week with Choose DuPage, and with possibly collaborating with these other communities at the show. The Recon show is an economical way to boost our presence at these meetings and focus our efforts on some of these large development sites throughout the community. And I don't want to convey that it's just those 2 sites that we would be promoting. There's some infill sites throughout the community, just not as big, like Devon and Prospect, or County Farm and Stearns, Schick and Route 59, other sites that we would be there to promote as well. So the other part of this marketing strategy would entail possibly engaging retail brokers who would work on behalf of the village, or really is teaming up with the village in a partnership to more aggressively promote these sites. And we have been currently investigating the hiring of retail land brokers affiliated with Sperry Van Ness to promote this site in conjunction with the village. We refer to them as SVN. They've been very active in the village for the past few years, leasing up some of the shopping centers. Joel Miller is one of the brokers who I have frequently worked with. He's represented Bartlett Commons, which is the shopping center that includes Bannerman's, in leasing up some of the spaces, including currently working on filling a vacant restaurant space that was Smokin' Pit Barbecue. We worked together on the Dollar Tree project and a few others. So he's been successful in leasing up that center. More recently, one of his partners out of the Geneva office of SVN, Brian Haney, was assigned the leasing of Oakfield Center at Oak and Lake Street. As you all know, it's suffered from a high vacancy rate for many years. Tonight even, they had a tenant before you seeking a liquor license. A hair cutting business opened just last week, and there's possibly 1 or 2 more in the works over there. So they've been successful with those 2 centers, as well as bringing a tenant very soon to the former Tipsy Monkey location that's just on the little west of here in Westgate Commons. So they've done evaluation, and they prepared a presentation after Scott and I met with them about 6 or 8 weeks ago that you have before you tonight. We presented all of this to the Economic Development Commission just at last week's meeting for their take on it and discussion, and you should have the minutes attached in your committee packet. So after a discussion at the EDC, they recommended in favor of this and bringing it before the village board for your consideration. And so at this time, I'm ready to answer any questions, and the 2 brokers that are standing back there ready to tell you a little bit more about what they do with Sperry Van Ness.
The first thing that just rings out to me on this contract is the $500 that we need to pay to have it marketed. I think by them putting a sign up at Route 59 and Lake Street is worth probably a lot more than that $500. But I just don't feel we should pay $500 to have it marketed. I don't know if you,
That is an item that is negotiable. My name is Joel Miller with SVN. Do I need to give an address? I can't remember what the protocol is here for the minutes.
And the committee, yeah.
Yeah, address at 25 North 3rd Street, in Geneva, Illinois. Yeah, so we typically do have a marketing fee. It defrays some of our upfront expenses, certainly doesn't cover all of it. That's administrative, signage, a number of other associated expenses. That is something that is negotiable. We can discuss waiving that if need be, particularly in a setting with a village. That's something we're open to. But yes.
anyone have any other questions?
Let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
You think you can find a buyer for this property?
I do. The development market is much stronger than it's been for quite a while. We've been active. We've been closing development land transactions over the last few years. We sold the, what was it, 9 acres approximately in St. Charles, adjacent to Pheasant Run Resort, or Pheasant Run Crossing, across from Pheasant Run Resort. We sold that to Silverado, a national assisted living facility for a memory care unit. We sold I have a property under contract in Hoffman Estates for development of a hotel. That is tentatively scheduled to close in the next week or so. We have some new quick service restaurant deals under contract throughout the suburbs. The market is moving again. We're still a little sluggish out in the further out suburbs, out in DuPage County and Kane County, particularly with larger scale development. What we've seen predominantly has been residential, mixed use, and smaller scale retail. But we're starting to hear developers looking for new grocery anchored projects, looking for new hotel projects. We're seeing more and more hotels get active for markets that have an underservice, such as Bartlett. I mean, if you look at your gap analyses for this market, we're underserviced for grocery in the immediate area. We're underserviced for hotel rooms. We're underserviced for fuel stations. We're underserviced for restaurants in the immediate area. There are a number, and automotive is tremendously underserved in the immediate area. So I think there's a lot of potential to see new developers coming to this corridor. Part of what you're looking at is incredibly strong traffic counts. If you look at that intersection, you're looking at in excess of 60,000 vehicles per day crossing 59 and Route 20. Those are numbers that developers look at, those are numbers that retailers look at, and those are numbers that hospitality looks at as an indicator that there is opportunity. The first step is getting them to the table, and then it becomes a really long process of making sure we get the right developer with the right project to take on a site such as this. But I do think that there's opportunity to get this property moved and developed at this point in the process.
Are you pretty familiar with the property?
I am.
Yes. Is there anything, do you think the village could do to the property to enhance its appearance? Do you think that would help market the property?
For the kind of projects we're looking at, I don't think physical appearance is going to be terribly important out of the gate. I think where we will be looking for assistance and where developers will be in coordinating with any adjacent landowners for improved access. Access is going, particularly for grocery, access is key. And that's something that we may need assistance in securing access to Route 59. Likely includes larger acquisitions of other properties too. But that's, I think, the point where we would seek a lot of cooperation and assistance is finding ways to provide necessary access. The village is great at working with us on securing and identifying utilities and all the other associated necessary components for development. But access is always a challenge, always a key sticking point for retail development, and something we would probably be looking for assistance on.
How marketable do you think it would be to an automobile dealership? Sorry.
You've done a lot more automotive than I have.
Yeah,
Your thoughts?
very marketable. My name's Brian Haney. Jill and I obviously are at the same Geneva office, and I got the pleasure of the Oakfield Center. We had 8 empty spaces, and we're down to 2. within 4 months. So it really comes down to a lot of hustling, a lot of phone calling, just putting signs up that might have worked in the 60s. It doesn't work anymore. It's really networking with people and having discussions. And getting to your question about car dealerships, they're always looking really, as we went back to, is the traffic counts and being seen. So that's, obviously we just know a few doors down going west, they're expanding, right? So it's got great potential, that area, for a car dealership with the traffic count that they have. So, and a lot of them are kind of have grown where they're just in pinned-in areas. And, just like kind of the Pops, 1 or 2, 3, 4 manufacturers own many brands, and so that's what, obviously car dealers do too, is they might have 5 brands, and they do want to try and centralize and keep, as many things as they can and have the opportunity to grow. And even the used car gentlemen that are over on in Elgin, some of them are getting at the point that they could spread into new car dealership and expand, and they're kind of hemmed in with what they can do there. And there's a lot of competition there because I've worked with some of them there as well. So it's a great opportunity. It's a fun site. My background for 22 years, I did development, built subdivisions. So this is something that's a little bit more exciting to do than leasing out 1,200 square foot space.
Well, let me ask about the reconstruction of Route 59 and Route 20. So do you think that is going to be that looming reconstruction of that intersection, you think that's going to be a challenge to your ability to sell the property?
It will be a challenge. Anytime we have substantial infrastructure and reconfiguration for road construction, it's a challenge. Developers look pretty far in the future, though, and that's something where I think we can still bring developers to the table that are ready to put together a project today. And I think it's, while a challenge, I don't think it's a hurdle that can't be overcome.
Does that property back to the other property that's at Bartlett Road and 59? Does our property back to it?
The railroad cuts through it.
Oh, that's right. Okay. What exact amount of space, or approximate amount of space, do you need for a hotel?
Hotels, the current hotel I'm doing, we're at 2 acres. That's the minimum. That's a limited service, 114-room hotel, I believe. It's on a pad site where it can share some parking with a larger retailer. So that's a very tight site for the kind of hotels we'd likely be looking at here. We did have preliminary plans. We weren't able to get them across the finish line, but for a hotel in St. Charles, 67 rooms on 1.4 acres. We ended up, that deal fell apart on construction costs. The cost of constructing 67 rooms was challenging. During the due diligence period, construction costs continued to increase. And that ended up being a significant challenge. Larger full-service hotels would look probably toward 3 to 4 acres. I would envision for a hotel development, it would not be a hotel on its own. It would be a hotel with restaurant and likely some kind of fuel station.
And 11 acres, that site has plenty of room.
Yes.
Plenty of room, yeah. You could do a hotel plus several supporting components, or even a couple of hotels. Many of the hotel developers I work with support multiple brands. They like to pair a full service.
Airfield and the Hampton. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Full service and limited service hotels on the same site. Different price points offer a lot of kind of cross-marketing opportunities, ability to share staffs and other resources. Not to mention to support restaurants and et cetera that are developed along with it.
Good.
So your list price, is this something staff came up with, or the appraisal, or is it 1.7?
1.7.
Yeah, we recommended 1.7. That's a number that we came to in conversation with staff. It is supported certainly by comps in the market. Valuing development land is always challenging. It's a difficult number to pin down. I mean, if you look at your comps last year and a half within 20 miles of the site, my recollection from our analysis, there were 12, 13 reasonably comparative properties that sold. That had a sale price on a per square foot basis from about $1.50 a square foot to $8.75, give or take, median of $2.75, average of $3.20. So you've got a significant range on that, and that was for development from everything from luxury townhomes in Naperville, that was $8.75 a foot, to I believe it was a Park District sale that was at the, up on 59 in Streamwood, that was on the bottom end of that at $1.25 a foot. That site had challenges associated with wetlands, if I recall properly, that impacted that. It didn't have the same development potential that other sites might have. So that makes it a challenge to really pin it down based on comps alone. We do a little bit of backing into it. We look at what's being marketed in the immediate area. One of the challenges with this site, also an opportunity, but a challenge, is that there are 7 sites, I think, within a block and a half of this property that are on the market, that are available, that range in size from a couple of acres up to 20-some acres. There's a lot of different opportunities for a developer taking a look at the property. Now, the good news is that those are all in the city of Bartlett, so the village wins when that's transacted. It leads to new development. It's obviously not the site that you own, but we look at those other sites and how they're priced. I don't have those numbers with me today, unfortunately, but that also informed our numbers.
If this 11 acres was pad ready for development, what would that change for the list price?
If we were pad ready and we had an anchor in place, we'd probably be looking high teens per square foot. We were similar pads out on North Avenue in St. Charles. We were getting offers about $15 a square foot for fuel stations. A little bit lower than that for some QSR. Dunkin' Donuts had offers in it. I shouldn't say what their offer was. It wasn't very good. They have some challenges associated with what they can offer in many instances. But you'll see kind of those range for pad sites that are fully pad ready with all the infrastructure, utilities to site, all of the access roads established. We'll see those more in the teens. I've got a pad site under contract at about $14 a square foot for a quick service restaurant. We're able to slice off exactly what they need, and $14 a square foot is a decent number. For strong corridors like that, for comparison's sake, that's got 25,000 cars a day, not 60. So there is some significant differences on that, but long and the short, mid to high teens, I would guess, particularly if we have an anchor nailed down. Without an anchor, just unanchored pads are probably more in the 10 to 12 range would be my guess on a per square foot basis. And for reference, on the full site, 1.7 million comes to somewhere in the $4 a square foot range, $3.5 to $4 a square foot, based on 475,000 square feet, I think, of parcel we have there.
Has staff put any numbers together, what it would take to get this site pad ready?
It tends to vary based upon what type of project has been conceived of over there. The last time a developer pursued this property as well as some other surrounding properties was over a year ago for a large apartment development that also would have had some supporting retail. So they were really in the middle of putting together those numbers. They're pretty high numbers. They include some wetland mitigation, grading that needs to be done, roadway improvements. And then, so recall that this is part of also a TIF district. And that TIF was put into place in 2004 to help with a developer to offset some of those extraordinary costs associated with developing these sites. So I don't have an exact number, but it ranges pretty high.
Tony, a year ago or so, we met at the Heritage Days. We were talking with some hotel owners. Have you had any interest with hotel owners since that time?
Really not since that time. Unfortunately, one of them has pursued building a hotel in Hoffman Estates close to 59 and 90. Hotels, like other businesses, have their site criteria. It includes a lot of information, types of businesses, daytime population. But one of the biggest things they look at, and Joel and Brian can attest to, is their proximity to their similar hotels. You can only have one brand of one certain brand within a certain mile radius. So I guess the answer is not really anybody pursuing it since that time we spoke last year.
Be great, though, to have a hotel up here. We have Villa Olivia, we have Bartlett Hills, the weddings and whatnot that happen here.
As much as I'd like to see the development of that area, I got to ask the question from the taxpayer standpoint with regards to your commission. Is that negotiable or not?
Probably not. I mean, we would certainly engage. There's not a lot of room in that commission. It's, 6% is pretty common fee. It's certainly lower than it used to be for land development. Because of the scope of the project, the energy that goes into development, in addition to the time periods associated with taking a development through initial concepting, through initial city review, city council approval, and getting to the sale. I mean, the last land sale that I am completing is 18 months into contract and city planning approvals. It's a lot of work. So land doesn't give us as much flexibility in our fee structures. We could certainly strike up front fees, but commission rates are challenging. The other component to that, when we look at a 6% commission rate, we always offer 50% of that to a cooperating broker bringing a buyer to the table. That's something unique to SVN in that it is contractually obligated with our firm that we always offer 50% of our total commission. We don't take a 5-6% fee and put a half point on the table for a buyer's broker to bring their developer to the table like some other national firms might do. We always offer a full fee. That's something that every broker in the industry knows. They know if they're working with an SVN broker, they're going to get a fair commission on it. One of the important things, as I see it, with a stronger commission, a 6% fee, it helps us to leverage brokers nationwide. I'm a member of the CCIM, Certified Commercial Investment Members. We have tens of thousands of members across the country. I market to them, and I let them know that if they've got a developer ready to do hospitality, grocery, automotive development in Illinois, we've got a good commission on the table for their trouble. It helps us to leverage a community that has connections to a whole lot more developers than I could possibly be in contact with. I've got a list of developers that I work with that I know well. I know a lot of brokers well. And every broker that I know has their similar list of developers they know well, a lot of which are not in common with mine. So by offering them a strong fee, I leverage that. Every broker has their 10. It lets us reach out to 100 folks and reach 1,000 potential developers.
So let me dovetail on to Trustee Kammerer's comment. How quickly can you sell it if we increase their commission rate? It's been sitting there empty forever, right?
Timing is always challenging. I've never been one to...
And give the...
I would certainly accept.
jack up the price
I can't
of it.
promise that
But
that
he has
would...
to sell it in 6 months.
Yeah, 8% in 3
I
months.
can tell you at 100%, I'll sell it next week. I'll buy it myself.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move this to the village board.
Yeah, thank you for coming out and sharing your information with us. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
That's it.
That's all we have for,
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Kammer, seconded by Trustee Carbonaro. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Kammer?
Yes.
Carbonaro?
Yes.
Daney?
Yes.
Cabrera?
Yes.
Hopkins?
yes.
Ranky?
Yes.
We are adjourned.